Imagine a poisoned arrow, crafted from your most private insecurity and dipped in the venom of another's envy. It is fired with perfect aim, an intangible missile designed to shatter your composure. You see it flying towards you, a whisper of imminent pain. It strikes the very core of your being and dissolves into smoke, leaving behind nothing but the quiet hum of your own unbreached serenity. This is not a fantasy of superhuman detachment. It is the first principle of the impenetrable mind, a secret known not to kings who build stone fortresses, but to strategists who master the formless battlefield within. There is a wound that bleeds invisibly, a hemorrhage of the spirit that no one else can see. It is the sting of a careless word that lingers for days, the crushing weight of an unfair judgment, the chilling shadow of another's subtle manipulation. When you are targeted, when your worth is questioned, your efforts dismissed, or your character assassinated by a whisper, the world offers you a single, primitive defense. You must build a wall. You are encouraged to gather the heavy stones of indifference and mix the bitter mortar of cynicism. You are instructed to construct a psychological fortress around your heart, a bastion so high and so thick that no verbal assault can possibly scale its ramparts. This is the conventional path, the deeply flawed strategy of the masses. They operate under the grand delusion that strength is found in hardness, in becoming cold, remote, and unfeeling. They fashion for themselves a hollow armor of arrogance, a transparent shield of disdain, believing that by showing contempt for the world's opinions will no longer matter. They desperately attempt to suppress the great tide of human emotion, hoping to dam the river of their own vulnerability. They believe that by transforming themselves into unyielding stone, they can no longer be broken. But the master strategist, the student of the timeless principles of Sun Tzu, knows this entire endeavor is the greatest deception of all, a profound and tragic lie you tell yourself to survive. For this fortress you have painstakingly built is not a sanctuary, it is a self-imposed prison. Its formidable walls may indeed keep your perceived enemies out, but they also lock you in, isolating you from the warmth of genuine connection, the clarifying light of trust, and the very essence of your own expansive humanity. The ponderous armor you have chosen to wear does not make you powerful. It makes you slow, rigid, and utterly predictable. Its maintenance is a constant draining effort, a ceaseless tax on your vital energy. You become the warden of your own solitude, pacing the lonely battlements, forever vigilant against threats both real and imagined. This is a strategy born not of power, but of profound and paralyzing fear. And any strategy that is rooted in fear has already sown the seeds of its own inevitable defeat. Furthermore, this psychological armor, for all its seeming strength, is dangerously brittle. Anything that is absolutely rigid, anything that refuses to yield or adapt, can be shattered by a single precise and unexpected blow. An attack you did not anticipate, a criticism delivered by someone whose opinion you secretly value, a betrayal that finds the one hairline crack in your defenses, and your entire citadel of self-protection collapses into dust. When it breaks, the flood of emotion you have suppressed for so long is released not as a controlled current, but as a devastating and chaotic tsunami, leaving you more broken, more exposed, and more vulnerable than you ever were before. You become a psychological ruin, a stark monument to a failed strategy. This is the inescapable fate of the reactive mind. The reactive mind builds its defenses in response to an attack, which means the enemy has already dictated the terms of the engagement. The enemy has chosen the time, the place, and the weapon. By the time you raise your shield, the battle's momentum is already against you. You have already lost the initiative, and therefore you have already lost. The true path to an impenetrable mind, the path of the strategist, does not lie in building a harder, thicker wall. It lies in the radical decision to have no wall at all. The great general Sun Tzu laid down a fundamental principle of victory. The victorious warrior wins first and then goes to war, while the defeated warrior goes to war first and then seeks to win. Your victory over the words, manipulations, and judgments of others is not won in the heated moment of confrontation. It is won long before the first shot is ever fired, in the quiet, disciplined solitude of your own consciousness. It is won through meticulous preparation. The impenetrable mental shield is not a static object. It is a dynamic living system. It is not stone, which can be broken, but water, which cannot be grasped. An arrow striking a stone wall creates a violent impact, a sound and fury signifying collision. But an arrow striking the ocean is simply accepted, swallowed, its energy absorbed and dissipated into the vast, unperturbed depths. The water remains unchanged. This is the way of the strategist. You do not seek to become apathetic or emotionless. You seek to become unenslaved by your emotions. You cultivate the ability to observe the poisoned arrow as it flies toward you, to calmly analyze its nature, its origin in another's pain, and its ultimate intent, all without allowing its venom to permeate your spirit. The first step on this path is not to build, but to understand. It is to survey the terrain. This is not the external landscape of social dynamics. It is the internal landscape of your own mind. You must become the master cartographer of your own psyche. You must know your own hills of pride, your valleys of fear, your rivers of passion, your insecurities, your triggers, your most deeply held values. These are the strategic points on your personal map. The power an external force has over you is directly proportional to your ignorance of yourself. The strategist does not fear the enemy's assault. He anticipates it, for he has already studied the map of his own vulnerabilities. He has reinforced his positions not with stone walls, but with the luminous, flexible power of awareness. This is the beginning of true invulnerability, a fortitude that is formless, fluid, and absolute. It is a silent, unassuming power, a profound calm that others may mistake for weakness, until they watch in confusion as their most potent attacks are rendered utterly meaningless, dissolving into nothing. For a rigid shield can be broken, but that which has no form cannot be grasped. True strength is not being untouchable, but being unshakable. Comment, I command my mind to internalize this principle and subscribe for the next lessons on the art of emotional sovereignty. You have abandoned the fool's errand of building walls. You have accepted that true strength is not found in rigidity, but in a profound and dynamic fluidity. Now, you must learn the architecture of this formless shield. It is not constructed from stone or steel, but from principles, timeless laws of psychological strategy that govern the battlefield of human interaction. These are not mere tactics to be deployed in moments of crisis. They are a new way of being, an operating system for a sovereign mind. To master them is to engage in a silent, invisible warfare, where victory is a state of perpetual calm. The first of these principles is the bedrock upon which all others are built, the shield of preparation, born from absolute knowledge. Sun Tzu declared, "If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles." The common man hears this and looks outward, studying his rivals, colleagues, and adversaries. The strategist hears this and turns his gaze inward. For in the context of your own emotional stability, the primary enemy is not the person who insults you. It is your own unexamined reaction to that insult. The true threat is the hidden network of insecurities, vanities, and unresolved pains that an external word can activate. An attack only finds purchase if it strikes a part of you that is already unsettled. Therefore, your first duty is to become a master spy of your own interior. You must map your own terrain with ruthless honesty. Where are your hidden triggers? What compliments secretly inflate your ego? What criticisms strike a nerve because you fear they might be true? This is not an exercise in self-flagellation, but in strategic intelligence gathering. You are not judging your weaknesses, you are simply marking them on the map. When you know with unshakable clarity every corner of your inner world, the element of surprise is eliminated. An insult is no longer an unexpected ambush. It is a predictable move that you have already anticipated. The emotional sting is neutralized by the cold, clear light of your own awareness. You observe the attack, recognize the part of yourself it was designed to provoke, and consciously choose not to cede that ground. This self-knowledge is your first and most formidable line of defense. The second principle is the shield of positioning, which dictates the ground upon which you choose to stand. The strategist understands that many battles are won or lost before they even begin, simply by the choice of terrain. Most people build their sense of self-worth on the lowest, most unstable ground imaginable, the shifting sands of external validation. Their confidence is dependent on praise, their stability is shattered by criticism, and their identity is a reflection in the eyes of others. This is a hopelessly weak position. You are perpetually at the mercy of the changing winds of social opinion. The strategist, however, builds their citadel on the high ground. This elevated terrain is a sense of purpose and value that is derived from internal, unassailable sources. Your principles, your discipline, your commitment to your own mission, whatever it may be. When your self-worth is anchored in the daily actions you control, the promises you keep to yourself, the work you put in, the virtues you embody, the opinions of those on the low ground simply lack the energy to reach you. An insult hurled from below becomes a distant echo, its power lost in the ascent. This is not arrogance, it is strategic positioning. You are not declaring yourself better than others, but simply choosing not to engage in their pointless skirmishes. As Sun Tzu implied, the clever combatant imposes his will on the situation, but does not allow the enemy's will to be imposed on him. By grounding your identity internally, you refuse to allow anyone else to impose their definition of you upon your reality. You are no longer fighting on their terms. In fact, you are no longer fighting at all. You are simply operating from a higher plane of purpose. The third and most subtle principle is the shield of adaptability, the mastery of formlessness. A shield of stone, however well positioned, can be worn down by a persistent assault. The ultimate defense is one that does not resist but yields, absorbs and neutralizes. It is the nature of water. Water does not confront an obstacle with brute force. It flows around it, embracing its shape, its energy undiminished. When faced with a verbal attack or an emotional provocation, the rigid, untrained response is to meet force with force, to deny, to argue, to counterattack. This creates a violent collision that drains your energy and validates the aggressor's power. The formless shield operates differently. It does not block the initial feeling, the flash of anger, the sting of hurt. Instead, it allows the emotion to arise, but you, the strategist, remain separate from it. You observe it as you would observe a cloud passing in the sky, acknowledging its presence without identifying as the cloud itself. This is the art of detachment. You feel the energy of the attack. You understand its intent, often born from the attacker's own pain or ignorance, and you consciously choose not to internalize its poison. You let the insult, the criticism, the negative energy pass through you. It is a conscious release. This is not passivity, it is the highest form of control. You are adapting your inner state to neutralize the external force. You are shaping your victory in relation to the foe, just as water shapes its course according to the ground it flows over. By refusing to become a solid, rigid target, you give your opponent nothing to strike. Their force is spent against nothingness, and they are left disarmed and confused by your calm. This is the quiet victory, the triumph of the unshakable mind. You have been given the foundational principles of the formless shield, the intelligence of self-knowledge, the high ground of internal purpose, and the fluid grace of adaptability. But these principles are merely theoretical blueprints. To bring them to life, to wield them not as concepts but as extensions of your own will, you must now turn your focus from the shield itself to the hand that holds it. The ultimate weapon of the strategist is not the shield, but the mind that commands it. The psychological battlefield is not a place you visit during a conflict. It is the permanent state in which you reside. And on this terrain, the first and most consequential war you will ever fight is against yourself. Sun Tzu understood that an army in disarray cannot execute a brilliant strategy. A general consumed by his own passions is a liability, no matter how clever his plans. So it is with you. Your emotions, your impulses, your appetites, your vanities are your inner soldiers. If they are chaotic, mutinous, and disobedient, you will lose every engagement before it begins. The true war, therefore, is an internal one. It is the conquest of your own reactive nature. Rage, that flash of fire that promises power, is a treacherous advisor. It blinds your vision with a red haze, forcing you to trade long-term victory for fleeting, destructive satisfaction. Pride, that rigid sense of self-importance, is a fatal flaw in any defense. It creates blind spots where you are most vulnerable, refusing to acknowledge a weakness until it has been exploited by the enemy. Impatience, the desperate need for immediate results, is the saboteur of all grand strategy. It compels you to act prematurely, to abandon a superior position for a reckless charge, squandering your advantage. These are not moral failings to be judged, they are strategic liabilities to be mastered. The first victory, the one that makes all other victories possible, is the establishment of absolute sovereignty over this inner kingdom. This mastery is achieved through the practice of observation. When the spark of anger ignites, you do not suppress it, nor do you surrender to its flames. You simply observe it, with the detached curiosity of a commander watching enemy movements from a high vantage point. You acknowledge its presence without granting it authority. You see its origins, you understand its purpose, and you allow it to dissipate without ever taking command of your actions. This is the essence of discipline. It is the forging of a mind that remains clear and luminous in the heart of the storm. A mind in this state is the ultimate strategic asset. It perceives reality as it is, unobscured by the fog of emotional turmoil. It can discern the true intent behind a veiled insult, see the insecurity driving another's aggression, and identify the precise moment for action, or more often, for deliberate inaction. While the world reacts on instinct, lost in the chaos of its own feelings, you operate from a citadel of unshakable calm, seeing the entire battlefield with perfect clarity. Once this internal order is established, a remarkable transformation occurs. Your inner state begins to radiate outward, shaping the perceptions of those around you without a single word being spoken. This is the second phase of psychological dominance, the effortless manipulation of perception. It is not about crafting a false image or playing a role. It is the natural consequence of your inner equanimity. People are conditioned to expect certain reactions. When they provoke, they expect anger or fear. When they criticize, they expect defensiveness. When they challenge, they expect a struggle. When you fail to provide the expected reaction, when you meet their aggression with silence, their criticism with detached amusement, their challenge with serene stillness, you shatter their framework of reality. You become an enigma, a puzzle they cannot solve. Their own energy, intended to destabilize you, finds no purchase and reflects back upon them, amplifying their own agitation. Your tranquility becomes a mirror. This unpredictability is a profound source of power. As Sun Tzu taught, the expert at warfare is subtle to the point of formlessness. By becoming emotionally unreadable, you deny your opponents the critical information they need to gauge their effect on you. They are fighting in the dark, while you stand in the light of your own awareness. This projects an aura not of weakness or passivity, but of immense controlled strength. You are perceived as calm, calculated, and capable, a force whose depths cannot be easily fathomed, a presence to be respected and on some level even feared. This aura, reinforced over time, crystallizes into the third and final layer of your psychological dominion, your reputation. Reputation is not something you claim. It is something you build brick by silent brick with every interaction. Every time you maintain your composure under pressure, every instance where you absorb a slight without retaliation, every moment you choose stillness when others expect an outburst, you are laying the foundation of an invisible fortress. This reputation becomes a strategic asset of immense value. It is a shadow that precedes you, entering a room and defining the terms of engagement before you have even arrived. It is a silent broadcast that informs the world that you are not a target to be trifled with. Sun Tzu emphasized the supreme art of subduing the enemy without fighting. Your reputation is the mechanism for this highest form of victory. When people learn through observation that attempts to provoke, manipulate, or emotionally destabilize you are exercises in futility, they simply cease trying. The potential for conflict is neutralized before it can manifest. Your energy is conserved, your focus remains unbroken, and your path remains clear. You have won the war by creating an environment where the battle is never waged. This is the ultimate mastery of the psychological battlefield. It is not about winning arguments or putting people in their place. It is about shaping the very reality of your interactions, creating a lasting peace on your own terms, born from the unshakable throne of a disciplined mind. You have learned to map your inner terrain and stand upon the high ground of purpose. You have learned to be like water, formless and adaptive. Now, before we reveal how to consolidate this victory into an unbreakable state of being, ensure you are subscribed, for the ultimate wisdom is reserved for those who are dedicated to the path. The journey has brought you from the brittle armor of the fearful to the fluid defenses of the strategist. You have mastered the principles of invisible warfare and established dominion over your own psychological kingdom. All that remains is the final act, the execution of the decisive stroke. But in this silent war, the ultimate strike is not what you imagine. It is not an action, but a perfect and profound inaction. The conventional mind, when it hears of a decisive blow, envisions a climactic confrontation, a witty retort, a devastating counter-argument, an action that exposes the aggressor's folly. This is still the thinking of a combatant, someone engaged in a struggle for dominance. The strategist knows that to engage on these terms is to have already descended from the high ground. The true masterstroke, the move that ends the game, is far more subtle and infinitely more powerful. It is the precise and deliberate application of serene non-engagement at the peak moment of provocation. It is the final conscious choice to let the poisoned arrow pass, not out of weakness or passivity, but as a demonstration of absolute control. Sun Tzu wrote, "The quality of the decision is like the well-timed swoop of a falcon, which enables it to strike and destroy its victim." Here, the victim is not your opponent. The victim is your own reactive ego. The strike is the conscious deployment of stillness, when every fiber of your conditioned being screams for a reaction. Imagine the moment. An insult is delivered, a betrayal is revealed, a wave of negativity is directed at you. In that critical space between stimulus and response, you choose silence, you choose clarity, you choose to observe the chaos without becoming a part of it. This is the falcon's stoop. It is a swift, precise, and devastatingly effective maneuver that neutralizes the entire conflict. The effect of this maneuver is twofold. For your opponent, it is utterly disarming. They have thrown their spear, expecting it to hit a shield or a body to create an impact. When it instead flies through empty air, their own momentum works against them. They are left off balance, their aggression finding no purchase, their energy wasted. Your silence is not empty. It is a void that consumes their attack. But the more profound effect is upon you. Every time you successfully execute this maneuver, you are fundamentally rewriting your own neurological and spiritual programming. You are severing the chains of conditioned reaction that have held you captive your entire life. You are proving to yourself, on a cellular level, that you are the commander of your own inner world. This is not a retreat. It is the ultimate expression of power, an assertion of your freedom from the cause and effect mechanics of emotional manipulation. This is the decisive act that solidifies your impenetrable shield, not by adding another layer of armor, but by realizing you never needed armor to begin with. With this, you enter the final phase, the consolidation of victory and the aftermath. The true strategist knows that the battle itself is not the goal. The goal is the quality of the peace that follows. After a conventional victory, there is celebration, pride, and the lingering tension of potential future conflicts. But after this silent victory, there is only stillness. You do not gloat over your self-control. You do not feel superior to the person who failed to affect you. You simply observe the consequences of your chosen peace as they unfold. The new reality you have created is one where your internal state is no longer a variable in someone else's equation. It is a constant. The objective was never simply to win a single skirmish, but to create a lasting peace on your own terms, a peace so stable that future challenges are dissuaded before they are even conceived. Your reputation for unshakable composure becomes your greatest deterrent. People learn that aiming their arrows at you is a waste of venom and effort. The war ends because you have made yourself inhospitable terrain for conflict itself. This leads to the ultimate philosophical conclusion about the nature of true power. The world mistakenly chases a power that is loud, forceful, and demonstrative. It seeks to control others, to bend circumstances to its will through brute force or overt manipulation. This is the power of a petty king, constantly guarding a throne that is forever under siege. The power of the strategist, the power of the impenetrable mind, is of an entirely different order. It is a quiet internal power that seeks not to control the world, but to achieve absolute sovereignty over oneself. It is the realization that the only throne worth having is the seat of your own consciousness. When you are secure on that throne, the chaos of the external world, the opinions, the judgments, the aggressions of others, becomes little more than a passing weather pattern. You can observe the storm, appreciate its fury, but you remain untouched in your shelter. The supreme power is the power that shapes reality in such a way that overt conflict becomes irrelevant. It is the throne that no one even dares to approach with hostile intent, not because it is surrounded by guards, but because the occupant's serenity makes the very idea of an attack seem absurd. This is the enduring peace you have won, a fortress that needs no walls, a kingdom that requires no army, a mind finally and truly at peace.